Petition Day, as Supreme Court would deliver its judgment concerning the presidential election between the PDP, the APC, and as well the Labour Party. Good morning and welcome to the Dailies on Echo Television. I am Sarah program with Rachel Tatsy. Good morning, Rachel.
Morning, Sarah.
And to our viewers, we're live on Facebook. Do well to follow us, like there, drop your views on any of the story that is of interest to you this morning. And we will be starting with the first paper, which is the Leadership newspaper.
On Leadership newspaper, Northern Governors orders mourn former SGF Adamu Fika. You can find details on page 7. Beware of ambitious politicians, Wike tells religious leaders. Trending, Lagos denies directive not to arrest erring motorists. Tribunal orders MTN to pay FIRS $72.5 million. You can find details on page 2. IPPIS, federal government to delist unverified workers from payroll tomorrow. You can start with the details on the front page. INEC allies fears over governorship polls, gets 10 new RECs. You can find more details on page 4. The big story on the paper, presidential appeal suspends as Supreme Court delivers judgment today. Tinubu Atiku Obi supporters upbeat. Police beef up security in Abuja. You can find all the details on page 4. Recalled ambassador's tenure not extended coming from the minister. DSS releases former AFCC chairman Bauer. And on Gaza war, Israel prepares for ground invasion. President presents 26.1 trillion naira 2024 budget in November. You can find details on page 4, and that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On the Vanguard newspaper, Senate to amend CBN Act bars governor from partisan politics, with detailed on page 19. Tinubu appoint 9 INEC recs. You can do well to find who those recs are on page 6 of the Vanguard newspaper. And on the issue of brain drain, federal government to increase enrollment of doctors and nurses next year. This is the right step in the right direction. You can do well to find more detail of that story in the paper. Domestic capital market, not foreign borrowing, can fix infrastructure gap in Nigeria, coming from the VP Shetima. And the big story says presidential tussle. 7 Supreme Court justices will decide Tinubu, Atiku, and Obi's fate today, with the rider 2 of 3 petition that got to the Supreme Court up for adjudication today. We have a good case at the Apex Court coming from the Labour Party, and you can see the picture of the 7 judges that will be delivering the judgment today. And on the issue of the IPPIS, federal government to stop salaries of unverified workers tomorrow, with detail found on page 9. And we have other column where we have for sport, Olufasan, and also a book that says God sent robbers to shoot me. You can do well to find more detail of that. We have another picture story here that says at the commissioning of the MTS.
On Blueprint newspaper, federal government appoints 10 new resident electoral commissioners. Tinubu presents 26.1 trillion naira 2024 budget estimates to National Assembly early November. You can find details on page 7. Adamu Fika dies at 90. Tinubu Buni Bureau orders mourn. Policy reversal on ban 43 items, grave danger to nation's economy, a statement coming from MAN. The big story on the paper, 2023 presidential polls, anxiety as 7 Supreme Court justices decide Tinubu Atiku Obi's fate today. Our candidate will win on strength of evidence, coming from the PDP chieftain. APC supporters roll out drums, says Tinubu's mandate intact. With Borno model communities ready to embrace ex-insurgents, ex-war commander, says attacks and ambushes on troops patrol logistic convoys reduced. You can find details on page 6. Senate seeks to bar serving CBN governor from partisan politics. Tax tribunal order MTN to pay FIRS $72.6 million. Fidelity Bank signs $40 million cocoa export deal with Afreximbank. You can find details on page 23. And that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
On Dailies newspaper, Ethiopian Airlines open up on Nigerian air deal with the rider. Says no plan to kill domestic operators. Detail found on page 25. And the big caption for the Daily Sun say decision day. Suspend as Supreme Court rules on Atiku Obi petition against Tinubu with detail found in the paper. Senate consider bill seeking to bar CBN governor and deputies from politics with detail found on page 28. Tribunal upholds election of Tambuwal as senator for Sokoto South with the rider. Senate swears in Yohana to replace Abu for Adamawa North. You can find more of that on page 29. Expect improved beavers and RF performance. INEC assures Nigerians, and I believe Nigerians will hold INEC to her word. You can find detail of that on page 13. Court notifies selection of some other fresh process. You can find more of that on page 5. Reps receive NEITI 2021 report to probe 8 trillion naira unremitted oil revenue. Israeli says some resignation of the UN SecGen over comment on Gaza attack. Detail found inside the paper. Court dismisses suit by ExxonMobil against the MMDPRA. You can find that also on page 26. Inflation devaluation drive Nigerians' money supply up to 66.4 trillion naira. This is a report coming from the CBN saying foreign borrowing not enough to solve Nigeria's infrastructure deficit, coming from the Vice President. And Tinubu is set to present 2024 budget in November. You can find detail of that on page 6. We have a cross-section of pictures showing some of the state commissioners of women affairs during a workshop organized by the Minister of Women Affairs in Lagos. You can do out to grab the paper and also see detail of any other story that is of interest to you.
On Nigerian Tribune, revisit 2014 National Convap report. South leaders tell Tinubu and the National Assembly Nigeria will be in deeper trouble if we don't cut waste. Obaseki warns. You can find details on page 5. Court removes Gandhi as son of Obomoso, orders fresh selection process. And in Bayelsa, APC reacts as INEC deletes Silva from candidates' names. Bill to ban CBN governor deputies from partisan politics passes second reading at Senate. You can find details on page 5. 9 states get new resident electoral commissioners. The big story on Nigerian Tribune, 8-month battle over Tinubu's victory ends today as Supreme Court decides Atiku Obi's appeal. Federal government should order NNPCL to sell petrol, diesel directly to marketers. This is coming from Ipman. Court stops Senate's award of 18.4 billion naira compensation to 36 Rivers Oil communities. And at the downside of the paper, 2,360 children killed in Gaza Strip. This is a report coming from UNICEF. Federal government threatens to remove unverified civil servants from payroll October 27, coming from the IPPIS. You can find details on page 8. FRIN shut down as EFCC students clash in Ibadan. Armed robbers invade TASUED private hostels, rape 4 students. You can find more details on page 15, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
Alright, let's take a look at the first newspaper. Bayelsa Guba. INEC removes Silva's name from candidate list. You can find detail of that story in the paper. Reps receive NEITI report, begins forensic probe of 8 trillion naira unremitted subsidy scam. Court dethrones Gani as son of Obomoso, others fresh selection process. Reps reject motion seeking lawmakers to pay WAEC, NECO and JAM fees. And we have slash with dollar. You can do out to find more detail of that story. Nigeria's electricity deficit, world's largest, coming from the UK envoy. You can do well to get that story and read more detail of what that means. And here also the big story for the paper says $3.4 billion forex fraud. Tinubu special investigator gets death threat amid Dangote Group's probe. And we have Obazi family team members receiving multiple death threats for anonymous numbers in the past few days. We also have Aso Rock Cabal pressuring him to hands off probe. And then anonymous scholars vow to induce presidency, federal government top officials to influence the probe call off. You can find more detail of that probe in the paper. Tinubu appoints rec for Lagos, Ondo, Ekiti, and others. Kaduna ex-Senator Sani opens up on Wike. And we have on the presidential poll, Supreme Court fixed Thursday for judgment, which is today. And the Labour Party saying, we are sure of victory. You can do well to find more detail of stories of interest to you in the paper.
On Nigerian News Direct, the big story: case against Tinubu, anxiety as Supreme Court determines Atiku Obi's fate today. NCDMB invests over 15 million hours of training to develop local content talent. Senate moves to amend CBN Act, ban governor from partisan politics. Infrastructure deficit: VP Shetima identifies capital market as sustainable alternative to borrowing. Abiodun seeks end to flooding in Isheri community as ministers pledge to develop solution. Investors lose 6.8 billion naira as NGX trading closes negatively. Oyetola commissions NPA Sharefarers Center in Lagos. I take that again. Oyetola commission NPA Seafarers Center in Lagos. Armed Forces Remembrance Day: Tinubu approves 18 billion naira life assurance policy for families. You can find details on page 2, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
Alright, on the Metrics newspaper, Nigerians' net foreign asset plummet 91% in September, CBN data reveals. Other stories here say Tinubu appoints 9 INEC resident electoral commissioners. Another issue of the IPPIS federal government to delete unverified workers from payroll on Friday, October 27th. The big story, which is on most of our papers, is still on the issue of the presidency. Anxiety as Supreme Court rules today, with the writer saying Tinubu will be victorious, says the presidency. Obi challenges Nigerian judiciary to protect the nation's value system. Labour Party expresses optimism of snatching victory. Nigeria won't burn irrespective of judgment, says Rino Omoki as the hashtag occupying Nigerian trends. You can find more of that story inside the paper. And I think it's important that Nigerians know that irrespective of the judgment today, I mean, you and I have been saying this from the very beginning, and on Monday we repeated it, and we are repeating it again today, that regardless of what the outcome of this judgment is, it is important that Nigerians remain calm, do not allow the judgment to affect you in any way. If we have all belief in the judicial system that they will do what is expected of them and they will uphold the law regardless of who is involved in it, then we should trust them to actually carry out all of this thing. Do not get dirty, do not do anything that will get you involved in any means of maybe chaos or whatsoever. Yeah. If you are supposed to be at work, be at work. If you're meant to be at home, be at home. We've seen that security is very tight over there in the FCT, so you will know that if anything goes wayward, anybody can get injured. So I think it's important that Nigeria should leave the judges to do their bidding. If it doesn't favor you, fine. I keep repeating the fact that this judgment will not determine how patriotic you are. And when I mean by that, this is not about a party. It's about you being the citizen of Nigeria. So just be faithful to Nigeria, and then let the parties, whatever is the outcome, let us just let it be. And let's continue and give whoever becomes a winner the support he needs to rule Nigeria better.
Of course, regardless of who comes out as a winner, it is our prayer that whosoever is, Tinubu is currently the president of Nigeria, and then your patriotism should be that whosoever is the ruler of Nigeria, the leader, the president, the person heading the affairs of this country, that through him certain things will come to be. in the country, and then we will see sustainable growth. Because in the end, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter party, it doesn't matter religion, it doesn't matter ethnicity. All that matters is we have leaders that are patriotic in nature, Sele, that they'll be able to say Nigeria first, and when they say so, they mean it, and then we will be able to see results. I believe until we grow to that level, in the end, we'll just keep having leaders coming and going and nothing significant happening in the country. So regardless of the verdict, it is true that Nigeria will not burn even if your candidate did not emerge the winner. Our prayers is that peace will prevail above everything, and that truly the Supreme Court are fair in their ruling or their judgment, that truly the right person emerges the winner, and then that Nigerians support whoever is the president of Nigeria, who currently is the president of Nigeria. That's your patriotism, and then we will eventually see growth coming to the country.
Also, as we put our trust and hope in the judicial system, we hope that they know the truth and that they will protect the truth as well. Still on the Metric newspaper, we have Lagos government Sean Alade market over violation of environmental laws. You can find more of that story on page 10. MTN is ordered by Lagos Tribunal to pay the FRS $72.5 million. Detail found on page 14. Silver fights back, writes INEC seek immediate withdrawal of amended candidate list. You can find more of that story on page 10. We remember yesterday INEC complained that the reason they're unable to make certain materials are because of cases like this. And since Silver is saying that whoever is on there should be removed, withdrawn of the amended candidate list. Well, we hope that they will rectify this, and then this will not affect the election in Bayelsa come the next 17 days. Still on the Metric newspaper, DSS releases former EFCC chairman Bauer from detention. You want to know more about that story? Do well to read more inside the paper. Also, court dismissed Gani as son of Obomosho. You can find detail inside the paper. And that's all the Metric newspaper.
On the Nation newspaper, federal government to delist unverified workers from payroll. 10 nominees for Senate screening as Rex. You can find more details on page 8. We have Oyebanji Okeyemi appointed CEOs of maritime agencies. Court removes sound of Obomosho Oba Olauye. You can find details on page 7. Infrastructure funding, capital market, cash replaces foreign loans. You can start with the details on the front page. And the big story on the paper, from Shetima, the vice president, farm centers in 774 councils to take off soon. Vice president woos investors with Nigeria's 70 million hectares of arable land. You can find more details on page 8. No going back on October 31st exit date for ambassadors. And that's all the news on the Nation newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the next paper, which is the Daily Independent. Air traffic controller raises the alarm over poor navigation aids, with the rider saying airlines still fly blind in Nigeria, coming from the aviation expert. Tinubu to present the 26.1 trillion naira 2024 budget to National Assembly early November. OK's 18 billion naira group life assurance plan for fallen soldiers' family, and we hope that the money will get to be or given to the families of these fallen soldiers. Detail of that story can be found inside the paper. And the issue of the Chicago State University record, why Atiku plead for fresh evidence may not succeed. Supreme Court rules in Atiku OBE appeals against Tinubu today. Reps received the NEITI report probe 8 trillion naira unremitted revenue, with detail found on page 29. Capital markets can help bridge infrastructure gap, coming from the Vice President Shetima. Tinubu appoint Oyebamiji NIWA MD Okiyima CEO Shippers Council, with a rider boost INEC Corporation with appointment of 9 regs. And the third quarter of 2023, GTCO posts 155.2% raise in profit before tax of 433.2 billion naira. You can find that on page 6. And also, Senate have moved to bar CBN governor deputies from partisan politics to stop use of foreign currency for transactions in Nigeria. And I'm happy to see this move coming. We remember during the time of Godwin Amifede, there was back and forth whether he wanted to come out for the presidential election or not. In fact, there were pictures of cars having his pictures on it, the fact that he wanted to go into it. And I think it's important that we let there are certain places that shouldn't get involved in partisan politics, and I think CBN is one of it, because a lot of people had things to say during the former CBN governor, where people felt that he was actually belonging to one political party or the other, and so it was affecting the decision he had to make on behalf of the entire nation. So we are happy that the Senate have taken that move, and we hope that it will be followed up with works eventually.
Yes.
Outside of the paper, we have Silver Rights INEC seek withdrawal of amended candidate list. You can find detail on page 6. We also have a picture story here where we can see President Bola Tinubu and the retired Brigadier General Abdurrahman of the chairman of the Nigerian region during the Point Breach of 2024 Armed Forces Remembrance Day at the presidential villa in Abuja yesterday. You can do well to find more detail of that story inside the paper.
On New Telegraph, we have 2023 budget capital expenditure gulps 857.08 billion naira amid failed infrastructure. Coming from telecoms, active mobile subscriptions declined to 220.7 million. You can find details on page 18. Reps asked EFCC to probe service providers involved in PNID deal. There's much age falsification in civil service. A statement coming from Iwufuru. You can find details on page 28. Court sacks Gandhi as chairman of Obomosho. Mohbad started vomiting after injection. Witnesses tells court. We're finding this story back on our papers again. You can find details on page 6. The big story on the paper, presidential poll judgment day for Tinubu, Atiku and Obi as Supreme Court gives final verdict today. Nigeria's energy deficit largest in the world coming from the UK government. Tinubu appoints new regs for Lagos, Rivers and 8 others. Army begins trial of 26 soldiers in Enugu State. Have woman 31 with 18-month-old baby survive Gele boat mishap. You can find more details on page 31. Still on New Telegraph, Pandev renews agitation for restructuring. Charges Tinubu to revisit 2014 confab report. Accuses Nord of colonizing NNPCL. Senate blames Naira free fall on border closure. You can find more details on page 226 and 29. And at the downside, we have a study that says exercise found to overcome erectile dysfunction. More details on page 26, and that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
Richard, I found this story quite interesting, that there is much age falsification in the civil service, and I think it's not just in the civil service, it's in the public service.
Yeah.
Because we are having issues where a lot of people, because of the age of retirement, have to go back and then, either reduce their age or
Yes.
reduce when they started working. And a lot of things are going on like this in the public service, because a lot of people cannot just afford to leave working and leave space for other people who are seeking job employment. No wonder we keep having the issue of ghost workers coming up on our papers, ghost workers in various parts of either the local government or even the state government, including the federal level as well. So I think it is imperative that let's just see what this story has been one of those stories, because this affects everybody, and in fact it starts from the head down to the very down, whoever is working. So you will be surprised that even some of our leaders, there were things that were coming out about some of our politicians, the fact that the age they claim to be is not even the age that they are actually, that is their real age. So I think this is really quite an interesting story that I think should be given more attention. And I think that if we really want to clean and restructure Nigeria, looking at our civil service, our public service, I think it is important that we have proper house cleaning to be sure that if your file is having so date, we should verify to be sure that the birth certificate or the going back to bring affidavit of age or whatever it is corresponding with when you start working and the right age as well. So I think this is a story that I really appreciate, and I hope that we'll do more than just writing it on our papers.
Marcella, I mean, this is a result of two things not going well in the country. That is, we are in a digital age and then we are in a computer age. And when the government refuses to upgrade how they collect and store data and information, this is bound to happen. Because when you have recorded sufficiently the birth date of people, not just them going to make a certificate, but let's say the government have a database of everybody giving birth in Nigeria ever since a computer was introduced, and there was continuous update. Trust me, this will reduce the number of age falsification, because the government will have a database that it is solid, and then when you take something that is fake or falsified, there will be contradicting information concerning you, and that will lead to more investigation, and people will not even dare try it because they know that the Nigerian government have a strong database. And then it also falls back to corruption, where we have people in offices who are in this office that allow people to come, give them money, and they change their date of birth. And at the same time, it also shows a system that has failed us when it comes to employment. So people have no option to keep backdating their age so that they will be able to gain employment, because the school system is not functioning as it is. You start school, you don't finish as the time it is. You see employment is showing that you must be below 30 years, and then you did 7 years in school and your time has gone way past. You need NYSC certificate. You have no option but to backdate your age because you need to serve to get. So seller is just a lot of many factors, and then one person can't be blamed for this. You can't blame the person falsifying their age, taking it back. You can't just blame the government alone, because of course you have no reason to be corrupt whatsoever. However, there's just so much factor around this age falsification that just eliminating one, doing the investigation, is not enough. It will continue until the root problem is being solved, and this is where I hope the Nigerian government will up their game.
You know, I get surprised every time we see. I mean, remember the issue of those pensioners that collapsed? They went there to actually do some verification. True. And I begin to wonder, during the verification, what are they actually doing that sometimes we don't see things that are supposed to be done? Because there are times that we say before workers are being paid, they need to go back and be sure that you've updated all you need to update in your file so that you'll be able to get paid. So just like you mentioned, quite a number of factors that are responsible for that. I hope that everybody will take responsibility and they'll be able to see things working well. Well, before we move to the next paper, we'd love to take a time out, take a break, let you, through the stories, and when we come back, we'll open the phone lines. Please stay tuned with us. Happy to have you back. It's still the dailies, and we have been looking at a number of stories, from looking at the fact that today is a decision day where Supreme Court will decide the fate of the APC, PDP, and also the Labour Party presidential candidate, looking at the back and forth that have taken quite a toll on Nigerians as well. We're also seeing quite a number of stories on the paper. Age fortification, that has been one of the reasons that our civil service is not working as it should be. So we would love to hear what your own inputs are concerning any of the story. What is your view on the story? We'd love to hear that. Please do remember, when you call, to reduce the volume of your TV set. When you call us, try to summarize your point in a minute so we can also hear you very clearly and other viewers will hear you at home. I still have Rachel with me in the studio. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sally.
All right, before the calls come in, let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The big story on the Guardian says the ex-governors turn ministers. Civil society organization demands state pension law review over the 2.4 billion yearly pay. You can find on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. And I think Richard, I would love to talk about the story because we have been having back and forth. Yesterday we saw where senators were actually giving reasons why they need to.
Yes.
Quite a number of things that I did not, or I still don't think sat well with Nigerians.
Of course not.
They mentioned the fact that the Nigerian road is not really good, the durability, and then that they need the cars to work. And it's imperative that you need the cars. But one thing that they said that I think didn't sit well with a number of Nigerians, apart from the road that they mentioned, which I don't think is an excuse to get such an expensive car, is the fact that they said rather than focusing on them, Nigerians will focus on ministers. And if you remember, Rachel, I said the ministers and the senator are one and the same, because civil society is demanding for state pension law to be reviewed. Then I think it's important, because looking at the picture of some of these ministers we are having here, they have served as governors at one time or the other, starting from the Senate president himself. He was the former governor of Akwa Ibom State, so we will know that at one point or the other, he actually served as the governor, and he's still collecting pension. And you and I reviewed the fact that pension is only meant for people who are not working anymore. But you're still working, so why collecting pensioners? And we're seeing civil societies are demanding a review. And I think it's important, Rachel, we will not get tired of emphasizing that if we mean business to cut down the cost of governance, if we really mean well for Nigeria, then I think it's important that civil societies will get support of Nigerians that this law needs to be reviewed. We've had a number of states that have already reviewed it in their state, like the likes of Lagos State. Once you are done, you're done. No more any pension whatsoever that you're a former governor whatsoever. And I think that when we look at some of the states that have taken, review of that law, they're actually doing well in that state. But a state that you don't even generate revenue that much and you still have to pay a former governor, I think it is just important that some of these people need to have a conscience say that I think I do not need this pension. You are presently the minister. How much is the running cost of your office? You have quite a number of money coming in. So why still collect pension as a former governor? So let's just see how far this review of this law will be, because talking about 2.4 billion yearly pay, Rachel, this is quite an amount of money.
It is a lot.
And I hope that the review will be visited.
We're already starting to get used to this 10th National Assembly saying insensitive things. And this is one of which, saying something like we shouldn't put our eyes on you. You're all the government, you're the lawmakers, you are our leaders, and we will not stop putting our eyes on you. Our eyes are on you 24/7 all the time. And we will keep talking until you become sensible and selfless and serve Nigeria the way you are supposed to, as you have sworn the oath, as you have promised in your campaign, as you have given us your what they call it, what they say during campaign, your manifesto. Thank you, Sele. When you need to come through for Nigerians, because we didn't put you there to be climbing Land Cruisers and SUVs and trying to be over comfortable. We have no problem with you being comfortable. Don't just abuse it. While Nigerians are yet to see 25,000 naira, when Nigerians are yet to see palliatives, when Nigerians are still struggling with minimum wages not being implemented, when we have fraud left, right, center, when we have roads not being finished, when we have our doctors leaving, when we have the NLC threatening on going on strike, when we have production going down and down, when we have oil theft eating. No, you are there to work. So work and stop thinking of luxury. Every day you're sitting down there and the only things you have approved so far are the things that are luxury to you. And everything that Nigerians need to be moving, and as lawmakers, we're expected by now, bills, papers, policies have been put into place to start rolling out. You haven't done anything about that, and you are asking us to take our eyes off. We won't do that, but you can keep being insensitive and keep making such statements and being nonchalant towards the real problems in Nigeria. We will put our eyes on the lawmakers. We will put our eyes on the presidency. We will put our eyes on the ministers. We will put our eyes on the governors. We will put our eyes on everybody that is in key position until you do the needful. And I believe that politics is starting to change in Nigeria. Trust me, you will not get another time if you do not do well, except if we are just going to go into a rigging game in the country. But Nigerians are waking up to saying, if you do not serve us, you are going to move out. And I believe that that is how the next general election is going to play out in this country. There is no it's not going to be a pity game of it is our person. We want Nigeria to grow. It's getting hotter every day. And if you will sit down there and be making, I believe that a lot of these politicians will be shocked, except if they're going to spend their resources on trying to rig the elections. But we won't sit down and keep allowing incompetent people to keep ruling us. You were there, you are in that office to work, you should work.
Rachel, I think I love what you said about that. Well, we look forward to seeing our leaders turning a new leaf and doing the right thing by Nigerians. Other stories still on the Guardian newspaper. Senate alters CBN Act to bar governor and deputies from politics. Detail of that can be found on page 6. Compel NNPCL to remit the $34.2 billion for Federation account, Falana tells the finance minister. Yesterday we saw where there is a probe talking about the issue of money that was being issued for maintenance of our 4 refineries that as it is presently is not even producing anything for the country. And here Falana is also telling the finance minister to compel NNPC to remit $34.2 billion to the Federation account. All right, let's
Morning.
How are you today?
We're fine, sir. Thank you.
How's the weather?
Fine.
Yes, okay.
Yes, Shaman calling from Kaduna.
All right, Mr. Shaman, please go ahead.
On our tours today, waiting to see what comes out of from the Apex Court. We believe God is going to speak on our behalf. The trending issue in Nigeria will be put to rest by God's grace today. But what we are saying to the judiciary is that there should be fear. We should not always stand before God for accountability. Whatever that transpired today is the will of God. If truly the will of God is seen in the life of the judiciary, the judges should know that it is God that is the highest God. If they are judges here on earth and they are not fair, if they are sectional, they will stand before God to account for this. So Nigeria, we are on our toes today to know who is our president today. Even though President Tinubu has been there and people are appraising him, we pray that things will get better if he should remain. But if it is the will of God that another savior is coming to take over Nigeria, to rescue Nigeria from the burden of Buhari.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Shema, for that contribution. Thank you so much. Still on the Guardian newspaper, we have Supreme Court delivers judgment today in Atiku Obi appeal against Tinubu with detail found on page 3. 3 on murder trial over witchcraft allegation killing of 5. You can find more of that story inside the paper. President approved 18 billion naira assurance policies for families of fallen heroes. More detail on page 3. Court dismisses suit by ExxonMobil against the NNDPRA. Beware of politicians, Wike warned religious leaders. You can find what he meant by that on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. And that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On the Daily Times newspaper, Atiku Obi appeal final today. Supreme Court holds ACs. We have the writer under the story saying, will Tinubu remain president? Will Nigerians see a new era? Today is last lap of hotly contested protest. You can find more details inside the paper. And at the top of the paper, we have air traffic controllers raise the alarm on state of facilities, disasters waiting to happen. You can start with the details on the front page, and that's all the news on the Daily Times newspaper.
On the Voice of Liberty, Nigeria is safe haven for foreign investors coming from Bagudu. You can find details of that story inside the paper. And we have NRC to launch e-ticketing for train trips next week. Senate consider bill seeking to bar CBN governor deputies from politics. And today being the D-Day, Supreme Court to deliver judgment today on Atiku Obi's appeal against Tinubu. The Supreme Court of Nigeria will finally deliver judgment in the appeal lodged by the presidential candidate of the People Democratic Party (PDP), Atiku Abubakar, and his Labour Party (LP) counterpart Peter Obi. And we have forex transaction outside official window to soon attract excess taxes. You can find more of that inside the paper. And the new EFCC chairman Olukoyede orders staff to declare their asset. We saw that even since yesterday. Igbo elder slam Clark over demand for Abia, Imo, Edo removed from NDDC. Igbo elder slam Clark over demand for Abia, Imo, Ondo removal from the NDDC. We should thank the ex-president Buhari in a very special way. This is coming from Bishop Kuka. And you want to find out why he said that, considering the back and forth he had with the former president. You can do well to find more detail of that story inside the paper.
On Sweet Crude Report, Nigeria targets 1.7 million barrel per day oil production, $74 per barrel price for 2024 budget. Oil firms liable for 251 billion naira gas flaring penalty in 8 months. This is coming from NOSDRA. Says flared gas can generate 17,100 GW of electricity. Then we have Nigerian importers express concern over rising import duty. Government to require mining firms to invest in domestic processing. You can find more details on the front page and continue inside the paper. And that's all the news on Sweet Crude Report.
Let's take a look at what the world of business has for us this morning. Taxes and parallel market transactions seen fueling the forex crisis. With the rider, businesses will suffer, says the LCCI. You can find more detail of what they mean by that. We have petrol depots collapse on forex distribution crisis. You can find out on page 2. Markets move focus on aftermath of the 100 billion inflow. You can find that story on page 31. Private equity firms in Nigeria face worst year of investment exit. You can find what that means, because only 17 companies were sold by private equity firm across Africa in the first 6 months. So you do well to find more detail for those who are into that. Supreme Court rules on Obi Atiku's case against Tinubu today. More detail on page 30. Chronicles of Nigeria, $11 billion PNI, 11 billion naira PNID legal showdown. The Chronicle of Nigeria, $11 billion PNID legal showdown. You can find more of that on page 2. We have a picture story on the front page where we can see the governor of Edo State. You can do well to grab the paper and find more detail of that story.
On Sporting Sun, Chelsea interested in signing 100 million euros Gavi. Ajibade restores Super Falcons' pride as Nigeria-Ethiopia battle to 1-1 draw in Addis Ababa. Magai opens up on tough Man United spell. You can find more details on page 2. Lingard prizes himself out of artifact deal. Mourinho challenges red card conspiracy. Real Madrid to face Atletico Madrid January 3rd. You can find more details on page 3. Tonali agrees 10-month betting ban. Liverpool preparing Sane to replace Salah. Haaland set to miss 7-figure Man City bonus. Xavi, Boniface, Kane best strikers in Bundesliga. The big story on the paper: Osimhen for new medical test next month, unhappy with Napoli president comment. And on World Cup qualifiers, Ajayi joins Osimhen Chukwueze on injury list. Everton faces huge 12-point deduction. And at the downside of the paper, we have Tyson Fury confirms Usyk fight for December 23rd in Riyadh. You can find more details on page 3, and that's all the news on Sporting Sun newspaper.
Well, I think that's how far we can go this morning. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You're
for doing the
welcome,
program
Sarah.
with me. Thank you to Mr. Shama for calling on the program this morning, and thank you to every other viewer and supporter for always viewing and supporting Echo Television. Just let's leave you with this word. Do remember that whenever we say that politics is not our business, the policies eventually become our business. So please, do try as much as possible, remain peaceful, stay out of trouble, and be your brother's keeper. Until we come here again tomorrow, bye for now.